LeBron James is deciding where he'll play his 24th NBA season. But this may be bigger than basketball. With Savannah's life rooted in Los Angeles, every option comes with a family decision. So where does LeBron go next? And why could the answer have nothing to do with basketball? The end came fast. After 8 seasons in purple and gold, LeBron James informed the Los Angeles Lakers that the franchise could move on without him. The news broke through his agent, not through James himself. James informed the Lakers that the franchise can move on without him because he will play elsewhere. Clutch Sports CEO Rich Paul told ESPN's Shams Charania, "No farewell tour, no goodbye game. Just a phone call from his camp to the league's biggest insider." And suddenly the Lakers were staring down a summer without their franchise cornerstone for the first time in 8 years. The Lakers didn't fight it publicly. Team owner Jeannie Buss shared a message thanking James on X, calling him one of the greatest athletes in history and saying the franchise would always be thankful for his 8 years with the Lakers, including the title he led them to in 2020 under the toughest imaginable circumstances. James responded on the same platform, thanking the organization for the chance to wear the uniform and hoping he'd made a few people proud during his run. But here's the thing, that clean, polite exchange masked what was actually going on behind the scenes. This wasn't a front office pushing him out. This was LeBron at 41, deciding on his own that the story in LA had run its course. After taking time to decompress and undergo some self-assessment, James came to the conclusion that he wanted to continue playing meaningful, competitive basketball. A source familiar with James's thinking told ESPN's Dave McMenamin, meaningful, competitive, 2 words that translated mean he didn't see the Lakers as either anymore. And the roster context backs that up. The Lakers had just been swept out of the second round by the team that would go on to be crowned champions. The Los Angeles Lakers were swept by the Oklahoma City Thunder in their Western Conference semifinal series, marking the end of a roller coaster season. And while advancing into the second round of the NBA playoffs usually constitutes a successful campaign, the Lakers hold themselves to a higher standard. Losing that series stung even more because of the what-ifs. It's impossible to imagine whether the series might have been different if star guard Luka Doncic was healthy. So LeBron walked into an offseason with a roster that couldn't get out of its own way, and a body that remarkably still could. That's the basketball half of the equation. But there's a second half, and it's the one that's actually driving the headlines right now. Because while agents and executives were figuring out where LeBron could win, his wife Savannah was quietly building a case for herself. And it wasn't the case anyone expected. Savannah James isn't just a woman standing next to LeBron at award shows anymore. She's built her own brand in Los Angeles, a city she's lived in for 8 years, a city where her business actually took root. Savannah James has become quite the businesswoman and entrepreneur in her own right. And just recently, she announced that a new season of her Everybody's Crazy podcast, which is shot live in Los Angeles, is coming soon, along with brand deals with Lego and an interview with Forbes. That's not a side hustle, that's an operation. And it's not just Savannah's career tied to LA. Their daughter, Zuri, goes to Sierra Canyon School in Los Angeles and is thriving in volleyball there. 8 years of roots, a school, a team, a community, all of it sitting in one city, while the man at the center of the family is telling reporters he's ready to pack up for somewhere new. So here's where the tension actually starts. On one hand, you've got a Los Angeles power base that Savannah has spent nearly a decade assembling. Savannah James can, and would, be successful anywhere. But no question, being based in Los Angeles has helped her build her platform and business acumen, just as it does with countless other Los Angeles residents. On the other hand, you've got her husband telling the very people trying to recruit him that this decision isn't just about which team can win him a title. It's about his family too. And that's not speculation, that's LeBron in his own words, pulling back the curtain on a conversation most players never let the public hear. At a public event in New York, sitting across from Boardroom's Rich Kleiman, LeBron did something he rarely does. He let cameras catch the actual pitch he was making to his own wife. He described telling her directly that he wouldn't be playing for the Lakers again, that he'd be somewhere else, and that he wouldn't be home the way he'd been for the past 8 years. He said, "Baby, I'm letting you know. I don't want you to hear it from nobody else, but I won't be playing for the Lakers next year. I will be playing somewhere else, so I won't be home all the time. And you may not have an answer right now. I just want to know how you felt about it, because you mean a lot to me. You know, me being away from you means a lot," before reaffirming that family is very important to him in making his next career move, especially Zuri and Savannah, given they're still in the household. That's not a man who's already decided. That's a man who's still negotiating with his own family before he negotiates with any front office. And when reporters kept pressing him to hurry up and announce, his answer cut right through the noise. He mentioned that people are rushing him to make a decision, and his response was, "It's not just about the team." So now the question isn't just which franchise wins the LeBron sweepstakes. It's whether Savannah's Los Angeles life survives the move, or whether the family relocates together. And if they do, which city gets the honor of hosting the final chapter of the greatest individual career the NBA has ever seen? Section 2. Savannah's voice gets louder. Once the Lakers' exit became official, the noise online turned on Savannah just as much as it turned on LeBron, and she didn't stay quiet about it. On her podcast, Everybody's Crazy, which she co-hosts with April McDaniel, Savannah used an episode that dropped shortly after the split to address the wave of criticism head-on. The conversation didn't start about LeBron directly, it started about positivity and how rare it's become online. McDaniel noted that the community surrounding the couple's podcast is very positive, adding she wants to protect that because she doesn't think it's normal with social media. She thinks people build up things just to tear them down. Savannah's response was blunt. "You think that? That is a fact." From there, the conversation drifted, without much subtlety, toward her husband. McDaniel brought up how being an icon means absorbing an outsized amount of negativity, wondering aloud why people can't just get a life. Savannah agreed and pointed out something sharper than a simple defense. She suggested that an entire ecosystem of critics has built entire careers out of having opinions about LeBron. Savannah agreed, adding that it's crazy how some people want to have a subjective opinion about what everybody thinks is the best thing. It's worth sitting with that for a second, because it's not the tone of someone bracing for a fight. It's the tone of someone who's watched this cycle play out for over 2 decades and has simply stopped pretending it doesn't bother her. The biggest story in basketball this summer became where LeBron would end his NBA career, and James, no stranger to scrutiny, after pundits and fans criticized every move he made throughout his career, found this decision to leave the Lakers no different, with Savannah having had to hear these critics throughout his entire tenure. What makes this moment different from every other wave of criticism the couple has weathered is the stakes underneath it. This isn't just about a jersey. If LeBron leaves Los Angeles, Savannah's entire operation, the podcast studio, the brand partnerships, the school runs, the volleyball games, potentially goes with him. That's the layer most NBA analysts don't touch. Because it's not about a box score, it's about a life. And people around the league have started to notice. Analysts covering the free agency chase have started openly wondering whether Savannah's comfort in LA might be the deciding factor. That keeps LeBron there for one more year, regardless of what any front office offers. It's hard to imagine that Savannah will want to relocate at this point. And perhaps all it will take is for her to say that to LeBron, to bring him back to the Lakers for at least one more year. That take got amplified across sports media almost instantly. And for good reason. It's not unusual for a player to involve his family in a free agency decision, but LeBron's wife would make an unusually big impact on what he decides to do. And whether he stays in Los Angeles? Think about that phrasing for a second. Not she has a say. An unusually big impact. That's a different level of influence than almost any other NBA spouse has ever been credited with in a free agency cycle. But here's where it gets complicated, and where the story stops being a simple wife wants to stay, husband wants to leave narrative. Because LeBron's own comments, the ones about not being home, about needing to know how Savannah felt, don't sound like a man asking permission to stay. They sound like a man who has already made up his mind to go and is now managing the emotional fallout of that decision inside his own house. That's a very different picture than the one painted by analysts betting on a Lakers return. And it lines up with something else that's been quietly building throughout this entire saga. The idea that wherever LeBron lands, it might be closer to LA than people think, specifically because of Savannah and Jury. One of the strongest threads running through insider reporting is that the Golden State Warriors have leaned into exactly this angle in their recruitment. The biggest sell on the Warriors is the location. If Savannah and Jury really are impacting his decision, and they prefer he played closer to a place where they've built a life. For the last 8 years, then playing for the Warriors, roughly 370 miles from Los Angeles, is appealing. 370 miles isn't nothing, but in the context of NBA travel and off-season flexibility, it's close enough that Savannah wouldn't have to blow up her entire life. Podcast still shoots in LA. Jury stays enrolled at Sierra Canyon. Savannah keeps her Forbes features and her brand deals rolling. Meanwhile, LeBron gets to chase one more ring in the Bay, a short flight from everything Savannah has built. It's a pitch that solves two problems at once: LeBron's hunger for one more real championship shot, and Savannah's reluctance to start over in a brand new city at this stage of her career. And it's not just a location play. The relationships are real. LeBron has known these warriors, the actual people, not just the organization, for over a decade. Here's where the story shifts from family dynamics to a genuine bidding war. Because once word got out that LeBron was walking away from the Lakers, the entire league treated it like the biggest domino of the summer. Rich Paul, LeBron's longtime agent, didn't play coy about how big this got. James's agent, Rich Paul, said he had spoken to 27 teams about him, including the Cleveland Cavaliers, Golden State Warriors, and Miami Heat. 27 teams. That's nearly the entire league lining up to make a pitch for a 41-year-old, just to see if he'll say yes. Eventually, that mass of interest got trimmed down. The Timberwolves, Cavaliers, Heat, 76ers, and Warriors emerged as the finalists in the free agency race, each team having had its opportunity to pitch to James and his agent, with only one thing remaining for LeBron to make up his mind. 5 teams, 5 very different pitches, and every single one of them had to factor in the family question, whether they admitted it publicly or not. Let's start with the hometown option, because it's the one with the most emotional weight attached. Cleveland is where it all began, the franchise that drafted him, the city he left in 2010, in a decision that became infamous, the place he returned to and delivered a championship that broke a 50-year curse. There are 3 teams that have been considered frontrunners from the start: Cleveland, Miami, and the Golden State Warriors. A third stint in Cleveland would be the storybook ending, but it's also the option that would require the most disruption for Savannah and Zuri. A full move across the country, away from the school, away from the studio, away from everything built over 8 years in LA. Miami carries its own gravity. He spent 4 years in Miami, where he won the first 2 of his 4 championships. It's warm, it's familiar, and it's a franchise that knows how to build a culture around aging superstars. But like Cleveland, it's a cross-country relocation for a family that spent nearly a decade rooting itself on the West Coast. Then there's Philadelphia, a team that's been aggressive almost to the point of theater. The Philadelphia 76ers may be perceived as gaining an advantage in the competition for James's services, with Bob Myers, president of Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment, the entity that owns the Sixers, appearing on Rich Paul's Game Over podcast that he co-hosts with Max Kellerman. The Sixers have leaned into their own championship drought as motivation, that the 76ers are dealing with a long drought. No title in 43 years, no finals or conference finals in 25 years, enhances the pathway for James to add to his legacy by helping them win at the highest level. On paper, adding a healthy Jaylen Brown and a roster built around Tyrese Maxey gives LeBron the best supporting cast of any Eastern option. But again, Philadelphia is 3,000 miles from Sierra Canyon. Minnesota entered late but seriously, especially after making a bold trade of their own to bring in LaMelo Ball. It's a roster with real upside, but it's the coldest climate on the list, and arguably the furthest thing from what Savannah's built in LA, geographically and culturally. And then there's Golden State, the option that keeps surfacing every time this story turns toward family, because it's the only finalist that solves the location problem without sacrificing the meaningful competitive basketball LeBron said he still wants. The Warriors didn't just wait around hoping James would notice them. They made a personnel move specifically engineered to open a lane for him. Draymond Green declined his $27.6 million player option, opening up flexibility for the Warriors to pursue James and a possible trade with the Washington Wizards for Anthony Davis, which would reunite the former Lakers teammates in Golden State. Draymond didn't dress it up as a business decision either. He framed it as loyalty to an organization he considers family. Personally, I'm always willing to work with the team on whatever is best, especially at this point in my career, Green said, adding that his decision to opt out was for a few reasons, that he's always taken the approach of working with the organization, and that he's been in one place for 14 years, more of a family to him than anything. Stephen Curry, meanwhile, made his own pitch directly to reporters, without pretending he wasn't excited about the possibility. Curry acknowledged the allure of teaming up with James and the impact it would have on the NBA, then explained his pitch would be, "Do you want to play good basketball and be around people that know how to play the game?" adding, "Hopefully raise our floor and our competitiveness this year." He even worked in a nod to something LeBron's camp had flagged as important. He mentioned, "There's good golf in the Bay. We're an organization that's been there." He knows that. A not-so-sly reference to James's agent, Rich Paul, saying indoor and outdoor golf were important to his friend and client. That detail matters more than it sounds. Golf isn't just a hobby reference. It's shorthand for lifestyle. Weather, comfort, routine, the kind of stability that makes an off-season livable for a family used to a certain rhythm. The Warriors clearly understood that recruiting LeBron in 2026 wasn't only about basketball fit. It was about recruiting his entire household. Curry even spoke about what playing alongside LeBron again would mean on a competitive level, referencing their history together at the international level. James thrived playing with Stephen Curry in the 2024 Olympics, where James won tournament MVP, and Curry starred alongside him in the semifinals and gold medal game. That chemistry is real, and it's been floated by insiders as one of the few situations where LeBron could walk into a locker room, already trusted, already respected without needing to prove anything to anybody. But nothing about this remained settled for long, because the moment one report locked in a frontrunner, another set of insiders swung the pendulum somewhere else entirely. If you tried to track LeBron's free agency in real time, you'd have needed a whiteboard and a lot of patience, because the reported frontrunner changed almost by the week. At one point, the race tightened to a group that pointedly excluded the Bay Area sentimentality. LeBron James is zeroing in on the Cavaliers, Heat and Sixers as his top choices in free agency, per Shams Charania, with the Timberwolves and Warriors still in it, but currently viewed behind those three Eastern Conference teams. That report alone was enough to send Warriors fans into a panic and Cleveland fans into a frenzy, because it suggested the emotional pull of meaningful competitive basketball might be outweighing whatever pull Savannah's Los Angeles life had on the process. Then, just days later, the picture shifted again. LeBron James continues to consider the Golden State Warriors and the Minnesota Timberwolves. But ESPN's Shams Charania reports that the Cleveland Cavaliers, Miami Heat, and Philadelphia 76ers is where he is believed to be focusing his attention. Notice the difference. Golden State didn't disappear, but it slipped from co-frontrunner to an afterthought mentioned almost as a courtesy. Betting markets picked up on the shift almost instantly. Betting markets indicate an 88% probability that James announces his decision before Sunday, with only 12% of observers expecting the process to extend into August. That's not a market hedging its bets. That's a market that thinks it already knows roughly where this is headed, even if the exact team keeps shuffling. And the location detail that had defined the entire family storyline for weeks got a notable twist. 16 years after his 2010 decision in Greenwich, Connecticut, James is expected to choose his final NBA team while currently in New York finalizing the move. New York, not Los Angeles, not the Bay. If the biggest news of his free agency is breaking out of New York, that alone tells you the stay close to Savannah's world theory took a real hit somewhere along the way. That's not to say the family dimension vanished. Insiders kept circling back to it because it kept mattering, just not in the simple, one-directional way early reports suggested. Shams Charania framed the deciding factor in terms that went beyond roster fit entirely. LeBron James has made it clear privately that he wants to go somewhere he can compete for a championship, somewhere he feels he finds that happiness from a team environment and culture that he can uplift. Happiness, culture. Those aren't spreadsheet terms. Those are the same words you'd use to describe a decision that factors in a spouse's comfort, a daughter's school, a family's rhythm, just applied to the locker room instead of the living room. It suggests LeBron isn't choosing between team and family as separate categories. He's looking for one option where both boxes get checked simultaneously. And that search is what's been dragging the timeline out so long. Money, notably, wasn't the deciding variable anywhere in this. James played last season on a 2-year, $101 million contract with the Lakers, but he is expected to sign for significantly less in free agency. When a player who once earned 9 figures is willingly stepping down to a fraction of that for his next deal, it tells you everything about what's actually driving the decision. It's not the paycheck, it's the fit for him, for his legacy, and, by every indication from his own mouth, for his family. The Heat leaned hard into their own history to make their case. The Miami Heat hope to hear there again LeBron James's choice. 16 years following the decision, which could come as early as this week in New York City. There's a poetry to that pitch. The team he left Cleveland for the first time, 16 years later, offering him a chance to close the loop somewhere warm, somewhere he already knows how to win. Meanwhile, teams that had positioned themselves as frontrunners just weeks earlier were suddenly bracing for disappointment. LeBron James will eventually pick a new team, but even at 41, the league's all-time leading scorer is still playing at an elite level. So the team he chooses this summer will feel it is a step closer to winning a championship, while how the teams that miss out on him pivot will be similarly fascinating. Every front office involved in this chase had a plan B quietly built in parallel, because nobody, not Cleveland, not Miami, not the Warriors, not the Sixers, wanted to be caught flat-footed if the answer came back no. That kind of universal hedging tells you something important. Even the teams closest to the process didn't actually know what LeBron and Savannah had decided behind closed doors. The voice memos had been sent, the rosters had been presented, and still, silence. By mid-July, the entire pitching process had officially wrapped, and all that was left was for LeBron to actually say something out loud. Each team had its opportunity to pitch to James and his agent, with only one thing remaining: for LeBron to make up his mind. And ESPN's Shams Charania revealed that the pitching process was over, as all teams had submitted their pitches to James's camp, saying the voice notes had all been listened to. The rosters were set, and the decks were all laid out. That's about as close to "we're just waiting on a text back" as a $101 million caliber free agency chase gets. And LeBron, to his credit, didn't rush it for anyone. Standing in front of a crowd that kept shouting out team names, trying to bait a reaction out of him, he stayed patient. After fans in the crowd began shouting out NBA teams they'd want to see James join in the fall, he acknowledged a few into the microphone, including the Golden State Warriors, Philadelphia 76ers, and Miami Heat, the latter of which he previously played for from 2010 to 2014. He wasn't confirming anything. He was simply letting the crowd have their fun while giving away nothing real. What he did give away was tone. He talked about this next stretch of his career as the final one, and he made clear he understood not everyone would follow him wherever he landed. "Wherever I land in the fall, hopefully, if you're a ride-or-die LeBron fan, if you've been down with me since day one, I hope you ride with me there," he said. If you're a ride-or-die LeBron hater, that's what you do anyway. That's a man who has clearly already made peace with the criticism, wherever it comes from, because he's heard it his entire career and knows it isn't going anywhere. As for an actual date on the reveal, he kept it loose but promising. He shared, per ESPN, "I won't hold you guys up too much longer." Insiders backed that up almost immediately, reporting genuine momentum toward a real conclusion. LeBron James is genuinely close to reaching a decision on his next team, sources told ESPN, with many league and team personnel hopeful an announcement would come soon, following his fourth public appearance around Fanatics Fest, where he again declined to reveal his choice. So where does that leave Savannah and the entire question this story started with? The answer isn't a clean split between she wins and they stay, or he wins and they go. It's something closer to a negotiation that's been happening in real time, in public fragments, across a podcast studio, a boardroom interview, and a stage in New York. LeBron told her directly he'd be leaving the Lakers and that he wouldn't be home as much. An admission that reads far more like a man breaking hard news than a man asking for a blessing to stay put. And Savannah, for her part, spent her own public moments not fighting that outcome, but fighting the noise around her family in general, brushing off critics, calling their behavior what she saw it as, and refusing to let the backlash dictate how she talked about her husband's choices. What her presence clearly did shape, according to nearly everyone covering the story from the inside, wasn't whether LeBron would leave Los Angeles, but how far he'd be willing to go. The Warriors leaned on that distance every chance they got. The golf, the proximity, the existing friendships with Curry and Green, betting that even if a full Lakers return wasn't on the table, a short flight from Sierra Canyon and her podcast studio might be close enough to make sense. Whether that bet paid off, or whether Cleveland's history, Miami's warmth, or Philadelphia's roster ultimately won out, the record shows every single finalist had to answer the same unspoken question before they ever got a real answer from LeBron himself. Could this city work for the people waiting for him at home, not just the ones waiting for him on the court? That's the story underneath the story here. 27 teams called, 5 made real pitches. Voice memos got recorded by owners and presidents who don't usually bother recording anything for a player. And through all of it, the deciding conversation wasn't happening in a boardroom or a locker room. It was happening in a kitchen, Between a husband telling his wife he was leaving a city she'd spent 8 years building a life in, and a wife who hadn't given her answer yet, at least not one the cameras caught. Wherever he ultimately puts pen to paper, one thing is already certain. Savannah James built something real in Los Angeles, something that outlasted a championship, a scoring record, and 8 years of Lakers basketball. And LeBron, for all his history of making decisions that reshaped the league, made sure this time that the first person he told wasn't a general manager or an agent or a reporter.